coming at you with that 80s floof. Hi everybody, my name is Ellie Eyegirl. I am an eyeball person, a COA, or a certified ophthalmic assistant, if you will. I am certified through JCAPO, which is the Joint Commission on Allied Health Personnel in Ophthalmology. So I realized that I started this channel without really explaining who I am. Most of you that already follow me, and I'm very appreciative of your dedication to my IFACs. Most of you that already know who I am know me from Twitch. I go around to different streamers and spam their chats with different fun facts about the eyes. I really enjoy this. It has brought me such a strange sense of pleasure to help educate other people on their eyes, and that's what led to me creating this channel. So I wanted to create this video to give you an idea of who I am as a person and what my background is, so that, you know, I don't get quite so many questions about it. So when I started my journey into the eye world, it was actually completely by accident. I didn't try for this. I had no idea it really even existed. Of course, I have a heavy prescription. You can see it in my glasses. That's quite a refraction. I'm used to having to go to the eye doctor when I have eyeball problems, but I had never really considered it as a career. I had been about 20 years old, and I had just moved in with my now ex-boyfriend up north from where I originally am from, and I was honestly just looking for a job. I wasn't picky. I was just trying to get anything that I could use to pay the bills. I did eventually end up getting a call from a small optometry practice, and it was a little farther away from my apartment than I had originally wanted, but it was a job and I was going to take it. We've all been there. So at this little optometry practice, I worked as an optician. An optician is someone who fits patients for glasses. They sell contacts, they work with the insurance companies, they often do all of the billing as far as the glasses or contacts go when you have vision insurance, and I really loved that job. It was a tiny little office. There were only like 8 of us, including the doctor. So it was really a kind of small operation. But I did fairly well. At least I think so. It was a commission-based job, which I was not entirely a fan of because I could never really guess what my paychecks were gonna be. But eventually I got very good at understanding insurances, and I really loved the aspect of working hand in hand with patients to be able to look at their problems and then offer a solution that they would be able to afford. When it comes to eyes, and especially glasses, there's a lot of compromise that kind of has to be made. As you can see, I mean, I have a non-glare coating on my glasses, and you can still see the window that I have open in front of me because it's a very pretty day out. So I really liked the kind of troubleshooting aspect of that job, taking a patient's problems, taking their budget, and trying to find the most effective way of helping their problems, at least, if not fixing them. A couple years later, it was 2.5 to 3 years, I want to say, I ended up breaking up with the boyfriend that I was living with, and I moved back to my mom's house. Now, the clinic that I was working at was quite far from my mom's house. It was about a 45-minute drive one way, let alone coming back home. So I was spending an hour and a half on the road every day. I wasn't quite making as much as I was hoping to make, even though I was one of the top sellers in the company at the time when I left. So I decided that I would make the move to the medical side of eyes. This was something new to explore. I had already kind of mastered the optician world. Not mastered, there's always more to learn when it comes to being an optician as well. And not to downplay that career choice either. I really highly respect opticians. But I wanted to make the move to something a little bigger, a little broader, something that I could work even more hands-on with the patients with. So I did the research, I looked around to different practices that were available in my mom's kind of area or neck of the woods where I was living at the time, and I got a job where I am now still employed 4 years later. For privacy reasons and for management reasons, I will not be releasing any information about the company that I work for, but you will hear me give snippets about my work and my procedures fairly often. A lot of working with eyes is very hands-on, so when I'm talking to you about my work, I want to be able to provide you with some kind of detail. Now, starting into the medical side of eyes is fairly complicated. And I didn't realize what I was getting into at the time, but I did kind of take it in stride, and my company did really well to guide me through the process. So to become a COA, you first need to have graduated high school or have gotten your GED or equivalent. And you also need to do the approved JCAPO independent study course. The course that I took was kind of an open book course. They gave you this fairly large book and you read through it and took quite a large test at the end. But to get your full certification, you also need to have 1,000 hours of work experience in a 12-month period. So for 12 months, I wasn't allowed to try for my certification yet. And in this point in time is where it's really, really important that you're absorbing as much as you can from the job. There's so much involved in that first year of being a technician and being in that training that you will use when it comes to taking the final certification test. So the JCAPO COA certification test is a 3-hour test. It is made up of 200 questions, which you are graded on 190 of those questions. So 10 questions randomly are omitted from the grading system. Some people do get very lucky, and the 10 questions are comprised of ones that they were not able to answer correctly, and some people are a little unlucky, and those 10 questions taken out are ones that they were able to answer correctly. So you really, really need to know what you're doing in order to be able to get a passing score on the test. The test is made up of questions about 22 different subjects, and each subject has a different percentage of how much of the test is taken up by that subject. That makes no sense. And you think 200 questions for 3 hours isn't that bad, but there are unfortunately many of my fellow technicians that took the test and unfortunately ran out of time because they got hung up or stuck on certain tests. This test is very grueling. The wording and the terminology can be very confusingly written, and it's written like that in a way so that it's not only testing your ability to, hey, this is the question and that's the answer, it's also testing your ability to absorb the information that you're getting and to output a correct answer properly. So on top of my COA certification, I am also a CMSS, which stands for a Certified Medical Scribe Specialist. This was actually my first certification in the eye world. It only requires 200 hours of approved clinical instruction and a full online test. That's called the MSCAT, the Medical Scribe Certification and Aptitude Test. This is a very situational test and kind of more so tests your knowledge of what you should do in the general health field more so than it has to do with the eyes. My company does require every new technician to be a CMSS before they're able to work hands-on with patients. So hearing about the different requirements that are needed, a lot of people are very surprised that there's no formal schooling involved, and that's kind of a yes and no situation. There are certain schools out there that offer COA, COT, and COMT certification courses, but they're not common and they can be quite hard to get a hold of. In my area specifically, the nearest one is the next state over. So that's not quite possible for my company to send their technicians to the other state for a year or two. My company does require us to be COA certified within the first 2 years of employment. Some companies do extend that out to about 5 years, but the average tends to be about 2 to 3. And honestly, if you're paying attention in what you're doing at work and on the job, you're not going to have too much of a hard time with the test. What does being a COA look like? Oftentimes when I tell people that I'm a COA, they look at me like I just gave them a 15-letter acronym instead of a 3-letter acronym. And that's why if you've ever been part of the Twitch chats where I provide those very knowledgeable fun facts, you'll know that I refer to myself more as an eyeball nurse. That is in no way trying to put down the hard work and dedication that goes on in the nursing field, because it is extremely difficult to become an actual nurse. But many of the things that COAs can do are very much the same as many registered nurses can do. Now, obviously, it's going to look a little different depending on the practice, depending on the demographic and the specialty that you're working in. But the general rules of what we can do are pretty laid out. So in my practice, the technicians or the COAs are primarily responsible for all preliminary testing. So when patients come into our practice, generally the technician will take the patient back to the examination room and start in with the preliminary exam. We talk to the patient about why they're here, their chief complaint. We get any histories, such as their medical history and especially their family history. Fun fact, please talk to your families about their eye health. So many people come into my office and I'm asking them these questions and they're like, well, I don't know, my grandmother wore glasses. That's not acceptable. Your grandmother got up to 87 years in age. I'm pretty sure she probably at least had cataracts or something. Please talk to your family and understand your eye health history so that it will help the doctor to diagnose any problems you may have later down the road. We also do things like checking visions, checking blood pressure. We check intraocular pressure, and we can dilate for the doctor or administer any other eye drops that they want us to do before they see the patient themselves. A lot of our job is anticipating what the doctor needs and then having that available for them for when they're able to get in front of the patient, so that they're able to just sit down with the patient, take a look at the chart, have everything they need right there in front of them for their exam. Technicians also do all of the testing involved in your eye exams. So any kind of imaging that you're going to need, any in-office procedures, those are all taken care of by us technicians. When it comes to office procedures, we are the ones in charge of setting up for the doctor, assisting the doctor, and tearing down and cleaning or sanitizing. So when a doctor comes to us and tells us that he needs a incision and drainage, left upper lid, we go to our procedure room and we get all of the necessary supplies that that doctor is going to need. And that's generally all they have to say for us to know what kind of tools they're going to be using during this procedure. So while the doctor is doing their procedure, we are their extra set of hands. We're there to help hand them anything they may need. We help to make sure the patient is taken care of, and we're also constantly watching our sterile field to make sure that it is in no way, shape, or form contaminated. After procedures, we take care of all of the cleanup, we take all of our equipment, and we sterilize them ourselves. Yes, you heard me correctly. We do reuse equipment. I had a patient once tell me that he couldn't believe that his dentist reused some of the tools that they use, and I kind of had to look at him like, welcome to the medical field. So the tools that we use are re-sterilized between every single use. When we're done with the tool, we immediately take it to a special sterilization room, we clean it down, we wrap it up in sterile packaging, we write the date and our initials so that we know when it was sterilized and by who, and then it goes straight into an autoclave, which is a steam sterilization unit. Autoclaves are used in most medical practices and also in other areas. Tattoo artists, piercers, they also use autoclaves quite often to clean their needles and to stay sanitary. There's also a lot of behind the scenes work that COAs take care of, at least in my practice. We are kind of expected to be the doctor's extra set of hands, not only when helping with procedures, but even when they're in the middle of doing an exam. If they need something, we're available to get it, and we're the ones they will go to. We help make sure that the practice is running on time. We help to make sure that the doctors are aware of any incoming troubling patients, any incoming problems that we may be seeing, if they're running late for meetings, or if the surgery center is waiting on them to come up for an emergency surgery. In my practice especially, our surgery center is conveniently located in the same building. So if they need our doctors to come in for any reason, they just call down to us technicians and we inform the doctor. So I think that's going to be everything for today's video. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them down in the comments and I'll be able to answer them there. If you like this video and you were able to learn something new, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more eye-related content. And I'll see you in the next video.